So what I'm trying to say, like many people ask also about like how the purgation happens, how the process of like how nervous system purges it all. I mean, it's usually very, very intense. And people cannot even imagine to which degree it can be intense. It can be like you're crying out to your gut, or but the intensity is created through being in touch with a higher spiritual vibration. So then it becomes like a build-up in the nervous system, where all that tension, all that repression, all that contraction is pushed to the surface. But it can't just be like released just like that. Yeah, maybe you can do sometimes exercises, and some points of the body can be relaxed or kind of relieved through certain postures and movements. But the essential, that purgation of consciousness happens when there's such an intense, all of a sudden, wave within the subtle and the physical that you can't even explain why you feel like that. It's just a moment of that's it, and the contraction reaches the pinnacle, the highest point that you feel like you're gonna burst. This is it. But that moment, that contraction is so strong that poof, it releases, and then all these points along certain meridians, or let's say it's a bladder or gallbladder or liver or something in the spine, at that point it just releases with such an intensity, and you keep on crying, but it comes in waves and builds up. The cry builds up. It's not even normal cry. It's like a intense spiritual release or purgation, you may call it, to the point where you can scream, I can't take it anymore. I can't take it, because it's just like at that point, you feel that the entire paradigm of reality collapses. But you need to be prepared for such experiences, because you have to have that spiritual stamina built up by that time, so that you actually can be in touch with such intense spiritual frequencies, whether it's a frequency of the teacher or the teaching or your own self through that teaching and so on. You can't just decide that you want to experience it. It will come on its own, because it will build up through moon cycle to moon cycle, moon cycle to moon cycle. It will become a solar cycle. But people wonder why spiritual evolution takes so long, because it's from cycle to cycle. People say, oh, you need just 12 years to purge. No, many times it can be 12 years after 12 years after 12 years after lifetimes, until you reach that point where you're ready to take such experiences and not to lose your mind, and not to give into that momentum where you crack, where the mind can just, create something more. But usually, if it's a real, intense, truly spiritual and guided experience, guided through the higher being, there's no way that you can lose your mind. It feels like you're losing your mind at that moment. You're just on the border, on the verge, on the fence of that moment, but you don't. You actually feel so relieved after that you feel after that's the best sleep you ever had. Your nervous system is no longer jammed from that moment on. You may sometimes feel empty after such experiences for days, because you emptied something, but now it has to be filled in. So this kind of moments should not be spent among people. They should be spent by yourself, where you connect to the higher being and you fill in your now being with that higher vibration, higher frequencies. So your mind should be on higher kind of levels, contemplating something, or just allowing this connection to fill you in. If you start going about, I suffered now, what is going on, and you start going back into that past experience, you block yourself from being filled in with that. And you again are by habit trying to bring back this past experience, even though it's released from the nervous system, the memory is still there. So you need to dissolve the memory by consciously letting go of whatever that experience was accompanied with, whatever it represented. It could be a story, a breakup, a misfortune, a loss that triggered it externally. That external trigger you have to dissolve within yourself. You have to let go of that past that led you to this built up and release. If you don't do it, the work is not complete. So it's very, very important to understand this process very deeply and to approach it consciously and to be aware. Because usually if you're really a spiritual aspirant, you're aware even when you're purging and your limited self is going nuts and crazy about what's happening and you just can't take it anymore. You want to contract to such a degree that you can no longer do it. And then you burst. You burst. And with that burst, that part of the corrupt self is burst too. Now, whatever you see, corrupt is something crystallized. So all this crust around your true self will start bit by bit falling apart, dissolving. Now, what will take place? Nothing. Already that is there. It has always been. Your true natural being. It's just a crust that created this identification, this pain, this false stream. That will fall apart. And what's left is that. So that filling in means allowing that last bit to just crumble and dissolve and fall apart. So it's no longer veiling you even on the level of just memory. That's it. I let it go. I forgive. Forgive that experience means deep dissolution, letting go. It's like stream is taking away whatever is there within you. And that's it. You no longer come back to it. Even if sometimes your mind still has the memory, it's no longer valid for you. That emotional residue is gone. Even if the picture is there in your memory, you feel no connection to it. It just becomes like a residue which with time just fades away. So that's the way to work with your traumas. And I mean, through this spiritual process of real awakening, not false awakening. Kundalini, entity, energy, what is this? That's why it leads many people to madness. They perish. They don't understand what that is. That's conscious awareness about own corruption. And the process of cultivating the ultimate, and by that cultivation, dissolving or the dissolution of the transitory. That's what Kundalini awakening is supposed to be all about, spiritual evolution and so on.